Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Books. I'm Megan Cole, Teen Services Coordinator at the Powell River Public Library, and this is a video series that we are doing where we talk a little bit about books, the books we're reading, the books we've enjoyed in the past year, some old favorites. I share some of what I've been reading, and then when I receive any comments from the community, any emails, about what they're reading, I share those with you too. So to start off, I did receive a few comments about what folks are reading. Glenn Holstein let us know that he is reading the Western Mariner magazine. I haven't read that one. It sounds very specific, but magazines are always a great read when you're looking for something just quick to dive into. So hope you're enjoying those, Glenn. Brenda is reading Braiding Sweetgrass by Barbara Kimmerer. I haven't read this one myself, but I've heard a lot about it. A lot of people have talked about the beautiful writing and the great storytelling in that one. So definitely put that one back on my radar, Brenda. And Emily shared with us that she is reading Educated by Tara Westover, which has been hugely popular. I've heard about it from a lot of people. I've checked it out from the library, and I haven't read it yet. So that's another one that I guess is back on my radar too, as something I might read in the future. So thanks so much to Glenn and Brenda and Emily for sharing with us what you've been reading. We'd love to hear more, so I will give you the details on how you can let us know what books you're enjoying, even what magazines you've read lately, essays, lots of great places to find things to read right now. On my stack recently, I did finish the book that I shared last week by Carrie Ann Luong. It was fantastic. We do have that one at the library when we are open again. You should definitely check that one out. It was really, really great. After that, I dove into some nonfiction. This one I ordered recently. It's called Disfigured: On Fairy Tales, Disability, and Making Space by Amanda Leduc. This one came to me because I'm a big fan of this series. It's from Coach House Books. They do a series called Exploding Views, and they're these fantastic little short kind of essay books on specific topics. So this one focuses on disability and fairy tales, and it was really, really interesting. What I love about these books is it really causes me to think more broadly about subjects that I think I know something about, but they really expand it for me. So I really appreciated this book for that. Highly recommend this one. I think it's essential reading for all of us, and makes us really think about how we make space for people in our communities, in society, also just how we frame our own thoughts around these things. So I really recommend this one. And then after that, I kind of dabbled in a few books, trying to find my next read. I tried to read something on Libby. It just wasn't pulling me in, so I ended up returning that one and pulled this one off my bookshelf, which I purchased last summer. It's called Shapes of Native Nonfiction. It's collected essays by contemporary writers, edited by Alyssa Yashuda and Teresa Warburton. And I'm only, just early into this one, but I'm really enjoying it so far. I had read bits and pieces of it before. I've included them in some workshops I've done, and just really loved the writing. And so thought it was high time I actually read the whole thing. So I'm trying to get through this one from beginning to end. It has some authors you're probably familiar with, like Eden Robinson, who wrote the wonderful book Monkey Beach. It's also got an essay by Alicia Elliott, whose book of essays, A Mind Spread on the Ground, came out last year, and also some work by Billy Ray Belcourt, who is an award-winning poet who's based out here on the west coast of British Columbia. So this book, I'm really excited to keep reading it. I love the way it's kind of divided into these interesting sections, and for some reason I feel like An anthology for me right now is these manageable chunks that I can get through. I can read books fairly quickly, but sometimes I get bored of one voice. So this is great because it switches scene every few pages, gives you a different tone, different story, different way of seeing things. So I enjoy anthologies for that reason, and I'm enjoying this one for that reason. And I actually thought, as I was trying to think of what I would recommend to you for this week, I actually landed upon an anthology. And this anthology I bought 2 summers ago, and it is called Love Me True. Writers reflect on the ins, outs, ups, and downs of marriage, and it's edited by Jane Silcott and Fiona Lam. And this book is a collection of creative nonfiction writing and poetry. It's got, what I love about anthologies more and more is you become acquainted with all these different writers, and it's like kind of meeting your friends in a book. So it's got work by Susan Musgrave, Jane Silcott, Laurie Nielsen Glenn, so many people who you're probably all familiar with. And so, yeah, it's just a beautiful way of kind of examining a subject. I like it because as we're all spending so much time with family and partners, and sometimes even being on our own in these times makes us think about these subjects. And marriage is one of those things that is so complex and has so many different perspectives from which we can come at it. And this book is great for that. It's divided into several sections: evolution, decisions, commitment, passion, struggles, partings, death, and celebration. And it just is fantastic for, because all of our relationships look so different and how we come at them is varied, and this kind of gets at that. So I like anthologies because, these snippets of different people. It's also a great way to become introduced to an author. So if you are looking for a new book to read and you're not sure where to start, anthologies can introduce you to great voices that may lead you towards a person's work. So I recommend them for that. But also just, if you're feeling a little bit distracted and need quick things to read, I recommend these kinds of books. So I thought I would read one of my favorites from here. I've used it in workshops before, by Jane Silcott. I like it because it's in second person, which for the writers out there in the world, you'll know this is a more unusual way to write. It's fairly rare for an author to write from second person, and also because it's about cooking. And for those of you who know me, I love cooking. So this is called Cooking Class and Marriage Lessons. It's fairly short, so I will read the whole thing. By Jane Silcott. A friend invites you to a cooking class. You agree because she's a good friend, a dear friend, but truly you'd rather do long division in your head. You'd rather do push-ups or side planks or both. You'd rather lie on train tracks and die romantically, a train filled with oversized industrial stoves and sautéed duck breasts rolling over you, then serving you up, still warm, with morel sauce on the side. Your husband makes you sit in the front row. Your husband becomes the guy in the class who makes jokes out loud, so the chef starts using his name, and you realize you've married the class clown. How can you have been married for so long and not know that? As the chef lays his equipment out in front of him and begins to talk, the two of you look at one another. She should be here. She is your daughter. She, who watches cooking shows to relax, who gets in the kitchen and immediately becomes a young woman full of certainty, a young woman who can command you to sit down and stay out of her way, and you always do, feeling proud and surprised, and yes, a little hurt, all at once. You watch the chef with his whites on, his large frame, belly firm but round, filled with excellently cooked and loved foods, and hands, deft, accomplished, certain, moving above the counter, reflected in the angled mirrors above. so you get a bird's eye view. You will tell this to your daughter later, all agog. Mirrors, you will say, like on TV. She will look at you in that tired way that your worldly, nearly grown children have. Mom, we have those at school. How could mirrors be in your child's East Side school when the music programs were cut? You will think of your own cooking classes at school long ago in another city, another neighborhood, the class taught by a woman who seemed more impressed by the laundry equipment than the stoves, a woman who would bring her dirty clothes to school and wash while she taught. The only thing you learned in her class was to clean up as you cooked. While the chef talks about his wet hand and his dry hand, the hand that handled the meat and the hand that didn't, you steal a look at your husband to see if he is paying attention. He is. And when the chef does something remarkable, memorable, one of those little tricks you can take home and teach your daughter, you look at one another again and know you are both aching in the same way. Meanwhile, the chef goes on. You wonder when it can be over, when you can have your wine back. The chef has made everyone put their glasses on the island, an island half the size of your house and almost as far away. He said it was because he didn't want anyone to knock a glass over accidentally, but you think he doesn't want 20 inebriated adults playing with knives and fire. After you sit through the lesson about duck and morel sauce and bellinis, a lesson that's flown through your head so quickly it might have been quantum physics or gene splitting, you and the woman next to you confess to one another that you hate cooking. You decide this woman might be your new best friend, and then wonder if it was destiny or survival that inspired you to marry a man who can turn on the giant fire-breathing stove without pause and pour half of Italy's supply of olive oil in a pan, then watch as it spreads, looking the happiest he's been all day. That's too much oil, you tell him. The duck is going to swim again. It's olive oil, he says. It's good. You turn away, telling him his love of oil is what made you fat, and he lies one of his marriage-saving lies, and you mix milk into a bowl for the bellinis, which you've learned are just potato pancakes with an exotic name. A moment later, he holds one of the ingredient containers filled with brown liquid above the pan. Are we supposed to put all this in? Yes, you say, annoyed because hadn't the chef said everything was pre-measured? It seems like an awful lot, he adds. Just put it in, you bark, wondering if the edge of your voice comes from the military ancestors lining up in the back of your head, and your mother, who was always good with commands. A second later, you both look at the tray and recognize a third container with white, creamy liquid that you were supposed to have used. And so what had you put in the duck? The water from the morels. Water that had been used to reconstitute the mushrooms that are notoriously difficult to clean. Never mind, you said. It's just a bit of dirt. The liquid will boil off. Your husband is silent. Stone silent. The kind of silence you've learned to recognize after many years of marriage. That it's best to leave him alone in. You turn back to your duck. The chef arrives at your station when you're slicing the meat. You think you're doing fine, but he says, "How about I do that for you?" and takes the knife from your hand. You suppress a small but familiar feeling of dismay. You've lived a life of people taking food preparation tasks away from you, and watch as perfect medallions of meat fall from the knife. Voila, he says. And voila, you and your husband repeat as you walk to the dining area. You're smiling now, thinking, again, how clever you were to marry a man who loves you anyways. Then the two of you savor your meal, chewing the wood chips of your morels as if they were there on purpose. And that was Cooking Class and Marriage Lessons by Jane Silcott, and you can find that in this anthology of creative nonfiction and poetry called Love Me True. It's a really great book, such diverse writing, beautiful writing. And I don't know if we have that one at the library, but if we do, I will share the link with you. So that is another Let's Talk Books video. And if you would like to share with us about what you're reading, books you've read in the past that you recommend to others, you can email me at cole@prpl.ca, or feel free just to comment on our Facebook or Instagram. We would love to hear from you and to hear what you're reading. So until I come here again on YouTube, till we meet again, I hope you enjoy some great books and stay well.